Lee Jun felt his stomach drop as the massive Vorthak warship filled his viewport. The thing was enormous, bigger than any human space station he'd ever seen. Its dark metal hull sparkled with strange blue lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. After 6 months of travel from Earth, he was finally here for the most important trade mission in human history. The airlock hissed open, and June stepped into a world that made no sense. The corridors were twice as tall as they needed to be, with walls that seemed to glow from within. Strange symbols floated in the air, shifting and changing like living things. His translator earpiece buzzed constantly, trying to make sense of the alien writing. 2 Vorthak guards escorted him through endless hallways. They looked like walking crystals, their bodies made of some clear, hard material that reflected light in impossible ways. They didn't speak, just clicked their claws on the metal floor as they walked. June tried not to stare, but it was hard not to be amazed by these creatures that looked more like living statues than anything biological. The throne room doors opened with a sound like breaking glass. Inside, the ceiling stretched up into darkness, and the walls were covered with what looked like frozen lightning. But none of that mattered once June saw Queen Vexara herself. She was incredible, 15 feet tall and carved from what looked like pure diamond. She sat on a throne that seemed to be made from a single massive crystal. Her body caught the light from everywhere and threw it back in rainbow patterns that danced across the walls. When she moved, even slightly, the whole room sparkled like the inside of a jewel box. But the most amazing thing was her eyes. They weren't really eyes at all, but 2 points of bright blue light that seemed to look right through him. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "So another human comes asking for our shield technology," she said, and somehow June's translator made sense of her crystal-like speech. "You all want the same thing, protection from the destroyer fleet that hunts your kind." June stepped forward, trying to look more confident than he felt. "Your Majesty, Earth offers valuable trade in exchange. Our agricultural knowledge, our music, our art." Queen Vexara laughed, a sound like breaking bells. "Music? Art? Child, we have been making art since before your star was born." She leaned forward, and the light in her eyes grew brighter. "But I will make you the same offer I make all humans. Guess my true name, and I will marry you. As my husband, your species will have access to all our technology." The other diplomats in the room, representatives from a dozen different alien species, started whispering and clicking. Some of them laughed. June had heard about this challenge before leaving Earth, but nobody had ever taken it seriously. The Vorthak were ancient and mysterious. No outsider had ever learned one of their real names, but something made June pause. As Queen Vexara spoke about her offer, he noticed something strange. The blue glow around her body flickered. Just for a second, when she said certain words, the light changed color. It was subtle, barely visible, but it was there. "I accept your challenge, Your Majesty," June said, surprising everyone in the room, including himself. The Queen's crystalline face somehow managed to show amusement. "You have 3 days, human. Then you will leave like all the others." But June was already thinking. That flickering light wasn't random. It meant something important. The next morning, June sat in his assigned quarters, staring at his tablet screen. He'd barely slept, his mind racing with thoughts about that strange flickering light around Queen Vexara. Park Mina, his research assistant, knocked on his door carrying 2 cups of terrible alien coffee and a concerned expression. "Sir, are you really serious about this name challenge?" Mina asked, setting down the coffee. She was young, barely out, of the diplomatic academy, but she had sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. Every ambassador who's tried this has failed. Some of them were genius-level linguists. June pulled up the recording he'd made during yesterday's meeting. "Look at this, Mina. Watch the Queen's energy field when she talks." He played the video in slow motion, pointing at the subtle color changes in the blue glow surrounding the Queen's crystalline body. Mina squinted at the screen. "I see it, but what does it mean? Maybe it's just, I don't know, her mood or something?" "That's what I thought at first," June said, rewinding the footage. "But look here. When she mentions trade agreements, the light stays steady blue, but when she talks about names or identity, it shifts to purple for just a split second. And here, when she mentioned her offer of marriage, there was a flash of gold. They spent the morning analyzing every second of footage from the throne room meeting. Mina proved to be invaluable, her keen eye catching details June had missed. She noticed that the Queen's light patterns weren't just changing color, they were creating tiny, complex shapes in the air around her body. It's like she's writing something, Mina said, pausing the video on a frame where swirling golden patterns surrounded the Queen, but writing with light instead of words. June felt his heart race. What if Vorthak names aren't sounds at all? What if they're these light patterns, energy signatures that carry meaning? That afternoon, June requested a meeting with the Queen's cultural advisor, a slightly smaller Vorthak named Zethkor, who seemed more willing to talk to humans. June played his role carefully, acting like a confused diplomat who wanted to understand Vorthak customs better. "Your Majesty's challenge has made me realize how little we humans understand about your people," June said, trying to sound humble. "Perhaps we could arrange some cultural exchange sessions. I want to make sure I don't accidentally offend anyone during our trade negotiations." Zethkor's crystal body pulsed with what might have been amusement. "You think learning our customs will help you guess the Queen's name?" "Honestly, I don't know," June replied, which was partly true. "But I figure if I'm going to fail, I might as well learn something useful in the process." Over the next 2 days, June and Mina attended every cultural session they could arrange. They learned about Vorthak history, their art, their technology, and their social structure. But most importantly, they observed. Every interaction, every conversation, every moment was recorded and analyzed. Mina discovered that all Vorthak created these light patterns when they communicated, not just the Queen. The patterns were unique to each individual, like fingerprints, made of energy. Younger Vorthak had simpler patterns, while older ones created incredibly complex light displays. "It's not just communication," Mina whispered to June during one session. "It's identity itself. Their true names aren't something. They say they're something they are." June nodded, pieces of the puzzle finally starting to come together. He had less than 24 hours left, but now he knew what he was really looking for. Kim Hanna arrived on the Vorthak ship, just as June was starting to panic. With only 18 hours left until his deadline, he desperately needed her expertise. Hanna was Earth's top xenobiologist, someone who understood alien life forms better than anyone else in human space. She took one look at June's exhausted face and immediately got to work. "Show me everything you've recorded," she said, setting up her advanced bioscanner equipment in their makeshift lab. The device was about the size of a briefcase, but packed with sensors that could detect energy patterns invisible to the human. June and Mina played back hours of footage, while Hanna's scanner analyzed every frame. The readings were incredible. The Queen's light patterns weren't just random displays. They were incredibly complex information streams, carrying massive amounts of data. "This is extraordinary," Hanna muttered, staring at her screen. "Look at these electromagnetic readings. When Queen Vexara creates those light patterns, she's not just communicating. She's broadcasting her entire genetic code." Mina leaned over Hanna's shoulder. "Her genetic code, like DNA?" "More than that," Hanna explained, pulling up a three-dimensional display of the energy patterns. "For Vorthak, identity isn't just who they are now. It's their entire family history going back thousands of years. Every ancestor, every bloodline, every genetic memory, all compressed into these light signatures." June felt a chill run down his spine. "So when she creates those patterns, she's literally showing the world who she is at the deepest possible level," Hanna finished. "Her true name isn't a word. It's her complete genetic identity made visible as light and energy." They spent the next few hours analyzing specific moments from June's recordings. Hanna's equipment revealed that Queen Vexara's light patterns became more complex and detailed during moments of strong emotion. When she laughed at the other diplomats, her patterns showed brief flashes of additional information. When she talked about her people's history, the light display became incredibly intricate. "She's not doing this on purpose," Hanna realized, pointing to a particularly complex pattern that appeared when the Queen discussed her challenges with governing the Empire. "These detailed patterns only show up when she's feeling something deeply. It's like humans blushing or their voices changing when they're emotional." Mina discovered something even more important while reviewing their cultural exchange. Sessions. "Look at this," she said, pulling up footage from when June had asked about Vorthak royal traditions. "The Queen's pattern here is different from anything we've seen before. There are these golden threads running through the blue light." Hana's scanner went crazy analyzing that particular sequence. Those golden threads, they're not just part of her current genetic signature, they're markers of royal bloodline. Ancient genetic codes that only appear in direct descendants of the first Vorthak rulers. So her true name contains the entire history of the Vorthak royal family? June asked. "Not just the history," Hana said, her voice filled with awe. "The living essence of every queen who came before her. When she unconsciously broadcasts her true name, she's sharing the compressed genetic wisdom of her entire ancestral line." With only 6 hours left, they had their answer. Queen Vexara's true name wasn't something she said, or even something she thought. It was something she was. A living library of royal genetic memory that she carried in her very cells and unconsciously displayed through her bioelectric field. Now they just had to figure out how to read it, decode it, and present it back to her in a way that would prove June truly understood not just her name, but her entire identity as the culmination of thousands of years of Vorthak royalty. The clock was ticking, and everything depended on the next few hours. With only 5 hours remaining, June's team worked frantically in their cramped quarters. Choi Tae, their mathematician and code specialist, had been awake for 36 hours straight, his eyes bloodshot from staring at scrolling data on multiple screens. Empty coffee cups and food containers littered every surface as the three humans raced against time. "I think I found something," Tae said suddenly, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. He pulled up ancient Vorthak texts they'd downloaded from the ship's cultural database alongside Hana's bioscanner readings. "Look at these old royal birth records. Every Vorthak queen has their birth documented, not just with a date, but with exact stellar coordinates." June rushed over to look at Tae's screen. The ancient Vorthak writing looked like flowing water made of light, but their translation software was slowly making sense of it. "What does that have to do with the Queen's energy patterns?" "Everything," Tae said, overlaying the Queen's light signature onto a star chart. "Watch this. See how her bioelectric field pulses in specific rhythms? Those aren't random. They match the gravitational frequencies of certain star systems." Mina leaned in, fascination replacing her exhaustion. "You're saying her energy field is connected to actual stars?" "Not just connected," Tae explained, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he ran calculations. "When a Vorthak royal is born, their genetic code locks onto the exact stellar configuration at that moment. The positions of planets, the gravitational waves from nearby stars, even cosmic radiation levels, all of it gets encoded into their DNA." Hana's bioscanner beeped with new readings as Tae's mathematical models aligned with her biological data. "That's incredible," she whispered. "Her true name isn't just her genetic history, it's literally written in the stars." For the next 2 hours, they worked like a synchronized machine. Tae mapped stellar coordinates, while Hana analyzed genetic markers, and Mina cross-referenced everything with their recordings of the Queen. Slowly, a picture began to emerge. Queen Vexara had been born during a rare astronomical event, a triple star alignment that happened only once every 1,000 years. Her energy signature contained the gravitational echoes of that cosmic moment, woven together with the genetic memories of every royal ancestor who had come before her. "Here," Tae said, pointing to a complex mathematical sequence scrolling down his screen. "This is her birth constellation, 3 blue giants, 2 neutron stars, and a planetary nebula all aligned in perfect mathematical harmony. The gravitational waves from that alignment are still encoded in her bioelectric field." But there was more. As they dug deeper into the ancient texts, they discovered that Vorthak royal names weren't just stellar coordinates. They were living star maps that changed over time. As the stars moved through space, as galaxies shifted and evolved, so did the Queen's energy signature. She's not just carrying the memory of her birth moment, Hana realized. She's carrying the ongoing story of the universe itself. Her true name updates constantly, reflecting the current positions of her birth stars. Mina made the final connection. That's why no one has ever guessed a Vorthak royal name before. It's not something you can learn from books or databases. You have to read it directly from their energy field at the exact moment you speak it. With less than an hour left, they had their answer. Queen Vexara's true name was a living mathematical poem written in starlight and encoded in her very cells. To speak it correctly, June would need to read her current stellar signature and translate it into the ancient Vorthak language of light. The question now was whether their hastily built equipment could actually do what they needed it to do. Oh. Bin arrived at their makeshift lab with a toolbox full of salvaged electronics and a determined expression. The ship's engineer had been pulled away from routine maintenance work to help with what everyone else considered an impossible mission. With just 40 minutes left until June's deadline, there was no time for proper introductions or explanations. "Show me what you need," Bin said simply, rolling up his sleeves and examining the scattered equipment across their work table. June quickly explained their discovery about the Queen's stellar energy signature, while Bin studied Hana's bioscanner. Readings. The engineer's eyes widened as he grasped the complexity of what they were attempting to build. "You want to create a device that can read her electromagnetic field and then project it back as visible light?" Bin asked, already pulling components from his toolbox. "That's like trying to catch lightning and turn it into music." "Can you do it?" Tay asked desperately, showing Bin the mathematical sequences they'd calculated. Bin was already connecting circuits and modified sensors from the ship's navigation system. "Maybe, but it won't be pretty and we'll only get one chance to test it." The next 20 minutes were pure chaos. Bin worked with the focused intensity of someone performing surgery, while the others fed him data and components. Mina held circuit boards steady, while Bin soldered connections. Hana calibrated biosensors to detect the Queen's specific energy frequency. Tai programmed the mathematical translations that would convert stellar coordinates into light patterns. Testing. Now, Bin announced, powering up their cobbled-together device. It looked like something from a mad scientist's laboratory, a collection of blinking lights, exposed wires, and jury-rigged sensors all connected to a central projector unit. They ran their first test using recorded data from the Queen's energy signature. The device hummed to life, and suddenly their small quarters filled with swirling patterns of blue and gold light. The display was breathtaking, complex, geometric, shapes that danced and shifted like living constellations. "It's working," Hana whispered in amazement. That's actually her genetic signature translated into visible light. But as they watched the light display, June felt something shift in his understanding. This wasn't just data or mathematical sequences. The patterns told a story, the story of Queen Vexara's entire lineage. He could see the rise and fall of ancient Vorthak dynasties, the exploration of distant galaxies, the weight of countless decisions made by queens throughout history. "Turn up the resolution," June said quietly. "I need to see more detail." Bin adjusted the controls and the light patterns became even more intricate. Now June could see individual threads representing specific ancestors, genetic memories that had shaped the Queen's very existence. There were patterns of wisdom gained through centuries of rule, scars from wars fought to protect the Vorthak people, and the loneliness of bearing responsibility for an entire civilization. "My God," Mina breathed. Her name isn't just identification, it's the complete emotional and genetic history of her people's leadership. June understood now why no previous ambassador had succeeded. They had approached this as a puzzle to be solved, a code to be cracked. But Queen Vexara's true name wasn't a password. It was the living essence of what it meant to be the guardian of the Vorthak race. "We have 10 minutes, Tay announced, checking his watch. June picked up their device, his hands steady, despite everything riding on the next few minutes. He finally understood what he needed to do. This wasn't about impressing the Queen with his cleverness or proving human intelligence. It was about showing her that he truly comprehended the incredible burden and honor she carried every single day. The real test was about to begin. Song Hee burst into their lab just as June was about to leave for the throne room. The cultural specialist had been monitoring Vorthak communications all morning and rushed over with crucial information that could change everything. "Wait," she said breathlessly, grabbing June's arm. "You can't just walk in there and project her name. I've been listening to the court preparations. There's a specific protocol for addressing royal energy signatures." June felt his stomach drop. "Protocol? What kind of protocol?" "Think about it," he explained quickly, pulling up notes on her tablet. "You're about to speak the most sacred thing in their culture, the Queen's complete ancestral identity. If you do it wrong, it won't just be embarrassing. It could be seen as an insult to every Vorthak ruler who ever lived." With only minutes to spare, he coached June on the proper ceremonial approach. The device needed to be held at a specific height, the light patterns projected in a precise sequence, and most importantly, June needed to understand what he was actually saying. "Her energy signature translates to something like Starborn Keeper of Ancient Light," he explained as they hurried through the corridors toward the throne room. "But that's just the surface meaning. The deeper translation is more like she who carries the wisdom of ancestors under the guidance of the eternal stars." June practiced the gesture sequence as they walked. The device had to be raised slowly, allowing the Queen's own energy field to resonate with the projection before displaying her complete name. It was like a ritual handshake, but with electromagnetic frequencies instead of physical contact. "Remember," he whispered as they approached the massive throne room doors, "you're not just guessing her name, you're acknowledging her entire existence, past, present, and future. Every choice her ancestors made, every sacrifice they endured, every moment of wisdom they gained is part of who she is." The throne room was packed. Word had spread throughout the ship about the humans' challenge, and it seemed like every Vorthak on board had come to watch. Their crystalline bodies created a sea of refracted light that made the room shimmer like the inside of a massive prism. Queen Vex'ara sat on her crystal throne, her blue energy field pulsing more intensely than June had ever seen before. She was nervous, he realized. For all her confidence and ancient wisdom, she was genuinely curious about whether this human could do what no other being had ever accomplished. "You have returned, Ambassador June," the Queen said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "Have you come to admit defeat, or do you truly believe you know my name?" June stepped forward, holding their jury-rigged device carefully in both hands. "Your Majesty, I believe I understand something far more important than just your name." The crowd murmured with interest. This wasn't how previous challengers had approached the moment. "I've learned that your true name isn't something you possess," June continued, his voice growing stronger. "It's something you are. You carry within yourself the living memory of every queen who came before you, the wisdom of countless generations, and the responsibility for your people's future." Queen Vex'ara's energy field flickered with what might have been surprise. "Your name is written in the stars themselves," June said, slowly raising the device. "And if I may, Your Majesty, I would like to show you that at least one human understands the incredible honor and burden you bear every single day." The room fell completely silent as June activated their device. Everything they had worked for came down to this single moment. The device hummed to life in June's hands, and for a terrifying moment, nothing happened. The throne room remained silent. Hundreds of crystalline faces turned toward him with expressions that were impossible to read. June's heart pounded so hard he was sure everyone could hear it. Then the light began. It started as a single point of brilliant blue radiance that emerged from their makeshift projector. The light grew slowly, expanding outward in gentle waves that seemed to breathe with a life of their own. But this wasn't just any light. It was the Queen's own energy signature, recreated and amplified until it filled the entire massive chamber. The Vorthak nobles gasped audibly as they recognized what they were seeing. Swirling patterns of blue and gold danced through the air, creating complex geometric shapes that told the story of their royal bloodline. Ancient symbols flickered in and out of existence, each one representing a different queen from their history. June had never seen anything so beautiful. The light patterns moved like liquid music, flowing from the ceiling down to the floor in cascading waves of pure energy. Golden threads wove through the blue radiance, marking the genetic memories of queens who had ruled during times of war, peace, exploration, and triumph. But the most incredible moment came when the display reached its crescendo. The entire throne, room filled with a brilliant constellation. Not just any stars, but the exact stellar configuration present at Queen Vexara's birth. The triple star alignment that happened once every 1,000 years blazed overhead, recreated in perfect mathematical detail. And there, at the center of it all, was the Queen's true name written in pure light. The patterns were so complex that June's human eyes couldn't fully process them. Layers upon layers of meaning swirled together. Her personal identity, her genetic heritage, her connection to the cosmos, and her role as the living embodiment of Vorthak royal wisdom. It was like watching the birth of a galaxy compressed into a single magnificent moment. Queen Vexara's own energy field exploded in response. Her usual steady blue glow became a blazing aurora that made her crystal body shine like a star. For the first time since June had met her, she seemed completely vulnerable. Not the untouchable ruler, but a being experiencing something she had never felt before. "Impossible," whispered one of the noble advisors, his crystalline voice cracking. "With emotion, he speaks the ancient light," breathed another. But June wasn't finished. As the stellar projection continued to swirl around them, he began to speak, his voice carrying clearly through the massive chamber. "Star-born keeper of ancient light," he said, using the formal Vorthak phrase that he had taught him. "She who carries the wisdom of ancestors under the guidance of the eternal stars, guardian of the 17 bloodlines, protector of the crystal worlds, bearer of the sacred trust." With each title, the light display shifted and evolved, showing different aspects of the Queen's identity. The nobles watched in stunned silence as this human demonstrated not just knowledge of their Queen's name, but deep understanding of what that name truly meant. Queen Vexara rose slowly from her throne, her massive crystalline form moving with careful dignity. Her energy field pulsed in rhythm with the projected light display, the two signatures perfectly synchronized. "You have done something that should be impossible," she said, her voice filled with genuine wonder. "You have not merely guessed my name, Ambassador June. You have shown me my own soul reflected through human understanding." The implications of what had just happened began to sink in throughout the room. This wasn't just a successful challenge. It was the first true communication between their species. The silence in the throne room stretched for what felt like forever. Queen Vexara stood motionless, her crystalline form still blazing with energy, from June's incredible display. Every noble, every court official, every being in that vast chamber waited to hear what she would say next. Finally, the Queen spoke, her voice carrying the weight of ancient tradition. "By the laws written in starlight and carved in crystal, I am bound by my word," she announced. "Ambassador Lee June of Earth, you have spoken my true name. You have seen into the heart of what it means to be Vorthak royalty. I will honor our agreement." The court erupted in shocked whispers and clicking sounds that June's translator couldn't quite make sense of. He realized that many of the nobles were just as surprised as he was. Maybe some of them had secretly hoped he would fail, keeping their queen from having to marry an alien. But what happened next surprised everyone, including June himself. Over the following days, as they worked out the details of their unusual arrangement, something unexpected began to develop between them. Queen Vexara was genuinely curious about this human who had accomplished the impossible. She wanted to understand how his mind worked, how he had seen patterns that her own people had missed. "Your approach was completely different from any other challenger," she told him during one of their private meetings. "Others tried to learn our language, our history, our customs, but you tried to understand what it feels like to be me." June found himself equally fascinated by her. Beneath the royal dignity and crystal exterior was someone who carried an incredible burden. She ruled not just a planet, but multiple star systems. Every decision she made affected billions of lives, and she did it all while carrying the genetic memories and wisdom of hundreds of previous queens. "Don't you ever get tired of it?" he asked her one evening, as they discussed the trade agreements that had brought him here in the first place. "Always having to be perfect, always having the weight of history on your shoulders?" Her energy field dimmed slightly. What he was learning was the Vorthak equivalent of a sad smile. "Every day. But seeing myself through your eyes has reminded me why this burden is also an honor." Their partnership began to change everything. The trade negotiations that should have taken months were completed in weeks. Queen Vexara didn't just agree to provide Earth with shield technology. She offered full technological exchange, something the Vorthak had never done with any other species. Word spread quickly through the galaxy. The impossible had happened. Not just a successful marriage between two completely different species, but a genuine partnership that was reshaping interstellar politics. Other alien civilizations began reaching out to both Earth and the Vortek Empire, curious about this new model of cooperation. Jun found himself becoming more than just an ambassador. He was now a bridge between worlds, helping translate not just languages but entire ways of thinking. His success with Queen Vexara's name had proven that with enough effort and genuine respect, even the most alien minds could understand each other. "You've started something that will outlast both of us," the Queen told him as they worked late one night on establishing new diplomatic protocols. "This partnership isn't just about our two species anymore. It's becoming a model for how different civilizations can truly connect." Joan looked at the star charts spread across their table, each one representing a potential new alliance, a new friendship between species that had never understood each other before. Their impossible marriage was becoming the foundation for a new kind of galactic community. The wedding ceremony was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The great crystal cathedral aboard the Vorthak flagship had been transformed into something that honored both human and Vorthak traditions. Floating holographic displays showed Earth's blue skies and green forests, while crystalline formations created patterns that told the story of Vorthak history stretching back millions of years. June stood at the altar, wearing formal Earth diplomatic robes, but with modifications that allowed Vorthak energy sensors to read his bioelectric field. It had taken weeks of practice, but he could now create simple light patterns with his own nervous system. Nothing as complex as true Vorthak communication, but enough to show respect for their customs. Queen Vexara had made her own compromises. Instead of the traditional pure crystal crown, she wore a circlet that incorporated metals from Earth, gold and silver that caught and reflected her natural light in new ways. The effect was stunning, creating rainbow patterns that danced around her crystalline form. The ceremony itself was a beautiful blend of both cultures. Human wedding vows were spoken aloud, while Vorthak promises were displayed as intricate light patterns that filled the cathedral with swirling colors. When June attempted his first formal energy pulse, a simple message meaning "I will stand with you," the entire Vorthak congregation pulsed with approval, their bodies creating a wave of synchronized light. But the real breakthrough came during the traditional exchange of knowledge that followed Vorthak royal weddings. Queen Vexara had to teach her new husband something essential about her people, while he shared something fundamental about humanity with her. June brought out a simple paper book, an actual physical book with pages that could be turned by hand. The Vorthak nobles were fascinated by this primitive technology that somehow stored information without any energy source. "This is how humans first learned to preserve knowledge," June explained, opening the book to show handwritten text. "Before digital storage, we used symbols on paper to share ideas across time and space." He taught Queen Vexara to read simple human writing, showing her how letters formed words and words formed ideas. She was amazed by the concept of linear communication, information that flowed from beginning to end instead of being experienced, all at once like Vorthak energy signatures. In return, the Queen taught June the deepest secrets of Vorthak energy communication. Using a neural interface crown designed specifically for the ceremony, she helped him experience what it felt like to think in pure energy. For a brief, incredible moment, June could sense the thoughts and emotions of every Vorthak in the cathedral. He understood finally why their communication was so much more than just language. It was a way of sharing souls. The ceremony concluded with something unprecedented in galactic history. June and Queen Vexara created the first hybrid communication, a message that combined human written language with Vorthak energy patterns. The words "Together we reach for the stars" appeared as floating text while simultaneously being expressed as a brilliant light display that conveyed the emotional weight behind the simple phrase. Within months, their success had transformed the entire political landscape of known space. Earth became the first world to establish full communication with the Vorthak Empire, making humans valuable intermediaries for other species who wanted to trade with the crystal beings. The shield technology that June had originally come seeking was just the beginning. The Vorthak shared advances in faster-than-light travel, energy manipulation, and stellar engineering. Meanwhile, human creativity and adaptability helped the Vorthak solve problems they had struggled with for centuries. Most importantly, their Chi. Marriage proved that understanding between completely different species wasn't just possible. It was the key to a stronger, more connected galaxy. Other alien civilizations began seeking out humanity, specifically because of their proven ability to bridge cultural gaps. June had started his mission hoping to secure Earth's safety. Instead, he had secured humanity's future as the galaxy's greatest diplomats,